Hello guys, welcome back to the Saturnid channel. Are you in the market for a new pet snake? Maybe you've been looking around in Morph Market or on Facebook Marketplace for your new friend. Well, there are 5 things you should consider before you make that purchase. Hey guys, welcome back to the Saturnid channel. I'm of course Saturnid, and this here is Zelda joining us to help me with this video. So, if you clicked on this video, there's a very good chance that you've been scrolling around looking for your newest pet snake to add to your collection, or you're a beginner who's never touched a snake in your life. Well, there's a couple things I think you should know before you jump into that commitment, because these guys, depending on the species, can stick around for a while here. Ball pythons, for example, can live for a couple decades if they're a female, and that means you're going to be dealing with this snake for a while. So it's good to know whether or not you actually want to make that commitment before you purchase your snake. As somebody who's been keeping snakes for a while and has kept many different species, from colubrids to pythons and more, I think I have just the right amount of knowledge to give you some things for you to consider before you make any purchases on any animals at all, including and especially snakes. Coming in at number 1, it is going to be finances. Do you have enough money to even afford this snake or animal to begin with? It's very easy to scroll around on Morph Market, Facebook, or Craigslist looking at the listings for animals. Some of them are free, some of them are $10, $20, $50. You might be thinking, wow, that's a cheap animal. I might want to buy that. Well, before you purchase anything, let's make sure that you can actually afford that animal. Because buying the animal is not the only thing that costs money. This is a live animal after all. I assume you're not just going to buy it and let it free roam in your house. There is a very good chance, in fact it is almost guaranteed, that if you buy any animal, you're going to have to put it in an enclosure, furnish that enclosure, and feed it on a daily, semi-daily, weekly, or bi-weekly, whatever basis. All of that costs money. There are short-term costs and there are long-term costs. Do you want to deal with, can you deal with, those costs? Let's take a look at my girl Zelda here. Technically speaking, she was free. I got her for free and the enclosure for free from somebody who simply did not have the time to deal with her anymore. So that means she is free, right? No. I do have to feed her every now and then, and that costs money. I have to feed her about once a week with a rat that costs about $7. That is worth monthly about $28 and yearly probably around $200. Is that a lot of money? No. However, if you have a big collection, you have like 5 ball pythons, that's $1,000 yearly. Do you want to deal with that? I probably wouldn't. She also came to me in a 40-gallon enclosure. And yes, that enclosure was free, but if you know anything about ball python keeping, you know that the minimum size that you can keep an adult ball python in is a 4x2x2. And that is an 120-gallon enclosure, not a 40. So I had to spend about $270-ish on a new enclosure for this girl, even though I got her for free. And if you are going to be buying a new pet snake, you're going to have to pay these costs even if you get an animal for free. Even if it comes with the enclosure, there's a very good chance that the person that you're buying it from did not house them correctly, and even if they did, you still have to pay to feed them. And depending on the animal that you want to get, these costs can be thousands. Is your ideal species a monitor of sorts, or a boa, or a reticulated python, even a super dwarf? The enclosures can run you thousands of dollars. Do you have the ability to feed your boa farm animals on a weekly basis? I don't think you do. All of these things are things you have to consider before you drop money on an animal. The animal might cost $100, but that doesn't mean that that's all you're going to be spending. Now for number 2. Don't purchase wild-caught animals. It can be very tempting to spend less money on an animal that is wild-caught or field-collected because you think, well, I'm saving myself sometimes a couple $100s. Bad idea, rookie mistake. Wild-caught animals often come in filled to the brim with parasites, diseases, and other problems. They're often cantankerous and are harder to tame down, and overall, they're just worse animals. Why would you buy a wild-caught animal? Chances are, if you're watching this video, you don't have the veterinary skills to treat any of these animals, which means you'd probably have to bring them to the vet on your own. That's expensive. Do you want to deal with that? Do you have a vet in your area that can deal with that? Do you have the money to deal with that? All of these things are questions you should ask yourself before purchasing a wild-caught animal. If you're looking to save some money, then you should really try to get a cheaper animal that has less costs associated with it, or you should just not get an animal whatsoever. We've switched snakes. We now are dealing with my milk snake, Annie. Her name is Annie because she's anithyristic, which means all of the red pigmentation has been removed from her body. That's why she's sort of this whitish pinkish color. Anyways, it's time for number 3, and that's going to be picking the animal you're going to buy. If you've never bought an animal before, it can be exhausting going through all the options trying to figure out which animal is right for you. Here's what you shouldn't do. You shouldn't listen to all the YouTubers and all the other people telling you that you need to get a beginner species. This is not a hard set rule that you have to follow. When people mention beginner species, what they're often referring to is species like bearded dragons, crested geckos, milk snakes, ball pythons, corn snakes, the list goes on. You need to consider whether or not you want to keep any of those species. If you don't, you shouldn't allow yourself to be bullied into purchasing them just because they're beginner species. You don't actually need to raise up a bunch of different animals before you're ready to take on the animal that you actually want. Now, there is a limit to this. Maybe don't get a cobra just because you did 4 months of DIY research. That's probably not a good idea. However, if you want a BCI as your first animal, don't buy a corn snake just because you think you should. Go through the effort to learn how to care for a BCI, how to house a BCI, and get a BCI once you feel ready. Don't buy random animals just because they're listed as beginner species. She's inside of me. I don't know why they do this, honestly. I'm gonna be real with you. This has happened to me a ton of times with king snakes. They just kind of do this. I don't know. We're back with a hair and shirt change because it's been a couple days since the last recording. Anyways, it's time for point number 4, food. Not much about the cost, but rather about the types of food you're going to be feeding to your new pet. So, the vast majority of pet snakes that you're going to be keeping either eat rodents or other snakes and lizards. And a lot of people that I talk to actually don't really want to feed these things to their animals, or a lot of them have parents who don't want rats in their freezers. And you really have to consider this before you get a new pet snake. If you got a lizard like a bearded dragon or a leopard gecko, you could feed it insects like crickets, and a lot of people don't really care about that. But I know that there's a lot of people out there who really don't want to feed a rat to their snake. Imagine if you had to feed your snakes live. I have a few snakes that I have to feed live too because they won't take frozen thawed. A lot of people don't want to see a cute little mouse die, and I can understand that. And so before you get your pet snake, you really have to consider and think to yourself about whether or not you actually want or are okay with feeding your snake live rats or frozen thawed rats, because there are people out there that don't like that either. It's just something to consider. Zelda was doing good until she wasn't. She won't stop moving, so she has to go back in her cage now. I'm gonna go get out a different animal that I have not shown on the channel before, actually, so you might like that. This is my crested gecko Bernard, and he is going to be helping us with our 5th point, which is bonding with your lizard and or reptile. And this is something that I've not really seen many YouTubers talk about in this sphere, and I've never really heard anybody mention this point before when considering a new pet, and that is that they'll never really learn to love you. If you buy a cat or a dog, over time, they will actually start to like you, or at least I think they do. Like, a dog will get excited when you walk through the door because it sees you and it thinks that it's playtime, But Lizards and snakes you really can't do that with. The most that you'll get with the more intelligent species is that they just know who you are, or they start to associate you with food. Like reticulated pythons, a lot of times when you open their cage, they'll strike at you. It's not because they hate you. It's not because they're, whatever. They just think that they're being fed, and that's about the extent that they're going to get. You're going to get from that snake, pretty much. The only snakes out there that are really intelligent enough to, like, know who you are for the most part is, like, king cobras, which you're not going to own a king cobra. I hope you're not. If you're watching this video for genuine advice, please don't get a king cobra. That's not, you're not ready for that. But king cobras, a lot of times, if you work with them enough, you can tame them down, and they sort of start to know who you are. Like, it's not like a loving kind of way. It's more like, oh, it's this guy again. Yeah, and he gives me food sometimes. I know this guy. But it's not a love thing like you'd get with a dog. And that's just something to consider. If you're going to get a pet because you want it to love you, don't get a lizard or a snake. If you don't care, then, go ahead. I mean, like, if you want to get a crested gecko so you can love it and kiss it and, pet it and you do all that, the lizard's never going to reciprocate that. But if you're fine with that, then yeah, go ahead. I've seen people do that with their jumping spiders, and the jumping spider doesn't fucking love you. It doesn't love you. But I mean, if it makes you feel happy, go ahead. Just know that you're never going to get a bond out of there. So don't try. And don't buy one because you think it's going to happen. Anyways, guys, that's the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know how you felt about this video. If there's anything else you want to add to my list, please leave that in the comments below. Tell me what you thought. I really like to read the comments and see what people are saying. Anyways, I'm going to be starting to upload twice a week, so do expect me to upload later this week. Maybe another Saturnid vlog. That'd be kind of cool. But, yeah, guys. See you in the next one.
No, you don't understand. It's not like that. You see, it's really quite simple. Fun is like a melody.
The top 5 biggest schlongs in the world. Number 1, mine.